Hello and welcome to the JDW Sports Network. This is going to be the Colts Quarterly Report. I'm your host, DJ Be Cool, and I have here the guest from the Culture Shock, Marcus. How are you doing today?
Hey man, all is well. Pleasure for you to having me on. Long time no see.
Yeah, that's great to hear. The Colts, wow, I mean, what a start for them this season to go off out of quarter two and come out 7-1. I mean, what an excellent start to the Colts season. I want to first of all get some thoughts from you, Marcus. I mean, what have been your thoughts from the Colts this season? Have they shocked you? I mean, I'm assuming so, but how much of a shocker has this Colts team been, offensively and even defensively?
This team shocked me really by storm, but I would say at the beginning, honestly, my goals for this team was to win the division. Just a small sample size of what you was projecting, especially after last season how it turned out. But this team definitely turned a lot of heads, including mine. I did not expect them to be this good. I didn't expect them to be leading the NFL in record and in the AFC as well. That's one of the best teams. The offense was another thing that surprised me. I just never knew how polished it could be. Of course, we knew Shane Steichen being a mastermind of the offense, but the team just hasn't been showing it since he's been here. And a lot of that had to do with quarterback play. And of course, with that situation being talked with Daniel Jones when he got named starter, it took the Colts fan base into almost rioting because they were like, what's going on with Anthony Richardson? What's the process? What's the whole idea? And then Daniel Jones came out and just, to be one of the best quarterbacks in football. And of course, scenery does a lot to your gameplay and especially coaching as well. And it shows how fluid this team has been moving on offense. But one of the best offenses out there in football. So I was definitely shocked, and it's something to look forward to watching every Sunday because you just don't know how good this team is until you actually watch them play. And for the defensive side, of course, we knew the history with this defense and how they played in recent past, but with the new defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, this team looks more aggressive than what we're used to seeing. They're going out there, still turning the ball over, things of that nature, and they're playing more press defense and actually more disciplined as well. So it's good to see continuity and chemistry between this team, something that we haven't seen in a while, and how happy they are in general is definitely a good feeling to be as a Colts fan.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. Like you were saying, Lou Anarumo, I specifically, want to even touch on that. Lou Anarumo's addition has been really helpful for this Colts defense. I mean, Gus Bradley the past couple of years, it was always the same thing. Like, play the cover three, play zone coverage. It was almost the same thing every time. You weren't seeing any exotic blitzes or any new looks. You're kind of giving the same look every time. And I feel like with Lou Anarumo, you're kind of just you're keeping the offense on its toes, right? You're like, oh, what could they throw at us? Could they, is Ira Franklin going to come through the middle? Is Nick Cross going to come from the side, right? My blind side. So I feel like you're kind of keeping the quarterback thinking, like, what could be happening? Even Matthew Stafford, you look at that Rams game, for example, even though it was in quarter one, right? You look at that, one of the plays was Matthew Stafford throwing to his tight end, didn't even see Zaire Franklin. And unfortunately, Zaire Franklin did drop the interception, but that was Zaire Franklin just dropping in coverage where Stafford didn't even expect him to be there. So it's just kind of like expecting the unexpected with this defense. But starting it off, of course, reviewing quarter two of the season here, weeks 5 through 8. I did want to go by position group here, and no better place to start it off than with the quarterback, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, I mean, he's been amazing, Marcus. Like top five in completion percentage, second in QBR right now, fourth in passing yards, top three quarterbacks under pressure with only, Drake May and Jared Goff above him right now. Top five in air yards and air yards per attempt. I mean, I can go on and on about the stats here, but Marcus, tell me, how do you feel about Daniel Jones this year? Has he really exceeded expectations?
Absolutely, and it's by a landslide. It's no question. Grade wise, if we're doing from A to D, I would give him an A grade. Honestly, it's not even just being biased, but I just think if you look at the QB carousel in the past and what we've been through in the quarterback position, he might be the best quarterback since Andrew Luck. Well, I would say since Phillip Rivers, honestly. What Daniel Jones does, how he reads the defense, takes his time, makes adjustments mid play, and just effortlessly hands the ball to his targets is just something that you would want to see out of the quarterback. Of course, nobody thought it would be Daniel Jones, but a lot of people forget how Shane Steichen scouted him in college, and this was just a match made in heaven. It's like a father son duo. They're always spending time together watching film throughout the week. They spend time off the field, just going over gameplay, just looking over adjustments and things of that nature. None of that chemistry has been talked about as much as it has been since Daniel Jones has been there. This news hasn't been talked about when Anthony Richardson was our quarterback, and it just shows you how hungry he is. Of course, we knew he was QB ready to come out the draft. Even his time at Minnesota and in New York, playoff wise, when they went on that playoff run and things of that nature, he showed you the poise and talent he could lead a team. But the team just hasn't been there. Organization was a dumpster fire. Coaching staff wasn't as good as Indianapolis. So there was a small little bit of hope of Daniel Jones actually clicking it together when he joined the Indianapolis Colts. Best offensive line he ever played with, one of the best running backs he's ever played with besides Saquon Barkley. The wide receiver group is complete, never played with that before, and the tight end group is successful with Tyler Warren added to that. So all of these things is polished around you. All you have to do is go out there, manage the game, make your throws, read the defense, and play good football. And he's been doing that so far. Now, of course, he doesn't have the greatest arm in the world, but a lot of that is not needed when you have Jonathan Taylor, who's on an MVP run, right behind you. Just give him the ball. And like I said, he's doing everything that he needs to do to a T. So I definitely got to give him an A grade for that.
No, definitely, and I'll agree as well. I have to give him that A grade. I mean, Daniel Jones, he's been a spectacular quarterback, Marcus, and he is playing quarterback at a level that the Colts haven't seen, frankly, since Andrew Luck, and based off statistics, you could even say since Peyton Manning, right? Like, I mean, points per drive right now is 3.46, which is above the 2007 Patriots. Like, are we serious right now? This offense is performing on an unbelievable scale right now, and it's just so excited for Colts fans because we've been waiting for this. We're like, oh, this is the team that Chris Ballard has been constructing over 9 years, right? Like, this is the team that he's been wanting. This is the culture that he's been wanting. So, Daniel Jones, just spectacular. I mean, he's only thrown 3 interceptions thus far through 8 games, and he's really, really just been taking care of the football. So, I have to agree with the grade there. And, Daniel Jones, giving him his props, just an excellent quarterback. And hopefully he can continue that through the remainder of the season. Because I think he can. Obviously, we're gonna go more into the tougher stretch. We'll talk about that later, the third quarter of the season. But talking about the running back right now, the MVP, as the Colts fans are calling him, Jonathan Taylor. Let's go on to the running back room here in Jonathan Taylor. Now, Marcus, I mean, this is not a surprise. He's top in the league in rushing yards. He's 5.9 yards per rush attempt. And I mean, he's been doing an excellent job so far, leading rushing touchdowns as well in the league. What has been your point of view right now of Jonathan Taylor throughout the season?
I'm glad that they're finally figuring out what you got to do with this offense is just give Jonathan Taylor the ball and get out the way. Of course, Colts fans been screaming, "Feed John, run the ball," for ages. Of course, but like I said, there's a guy giving him the ball at the quarterback position that sees, like, okay, this guy's cooking. Let's work through Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor has been one of the best running backs for years. Of course, he had, you know, bad habits or not, catching the football out the backfield, but he's worked on that and developed it. Now he's catching the ball out the backfield, so he's the most complete back in the NFL. Of course, he's our Saquon Barkley. When they went on the Eagles, when they went on that run, Saquon was just unstoppable. But honestly, I mean, you could throw this at a brick wall. He's looked better than Saquon when he was on that Eagles run when they went to the Super Bowl. I think this is the best season we've ever seen from Jonathan Taylor. He's just unstoppable, and it'll be disrespectful to not have him in the MVP conversation just due to how valuable he is to this team in general. No Jonathan Taylor, no production. This dude averaged 7 yards a pop last week, and dude is just unstoppable. Of course, you got to give credit where credit is due to the offensive line, which we will talk about. But Jonathan Taylor, like I said, is the best running back in football, and he shows it every single week. I think he gets faster by the snap. By the time the defense gets off the field and the offense gets back and Jonathan Taylor gets that handoff, he's like, I've been waiting for this moment. And he shows you. This guy's a dog, man. Just A grade.
Yeah, same here. I mean, A all the way. This Jonathan Taylor's just been a fantastic running back. And I mean, what else? You saw it in 2021, right? I mean, with Carson Wentz, that was just his potential, right? You just saw a glimpse of it. Now you're seeing the whole thing. Now you were seeing the tip of the iceberg. Now you're starting to get to see the whole iceberg, right? So Jonathan Taylor, it's just been an explosive running back. I mean, when you watch him play, he's been just so like I mean, his footwork is so beautiful to watch. I mean, the way he jumps between the lines, between the tackles, between just going right through the hole whether when the offensive line is opening it up, and he's able to dodge defenders so well. And I mean, it's just wow, it's amazing to see Jonathan Taylor just play at the level that we've always expected him to. We're just waiting for him to, when is he going to hit that ceiling or when is he going to break through that ceiling. And currently, I mean, he's definitely hitting that ceiling right now. And another topic I did want to bring up is the MVP race as of right now. So as of week 9, the MVP race has number 1 Patrick Mahomes, number 2 Josh Allen, 3 Drake May, 4 Matthew Stafford, 5 Baker Mayfield, 6 Daniel Jones, and 7 Jonathan Taylor for MVP odds. Marcus, what do you think of that list so far in terms of the MVP odds?
Of course, the list will be, MVP bias. It'll be quarterback related because it's mostly a QB award. But like I said, a lot of talent gets thrown under the rug and they give it to them as the offensive player of the year. When I just don't think that'll be good enough. I think like I said, I think who's more valuable to the team, I would choose Jonathan Taylor over Daniel Jones. Like I said, it's just no question. Baker Mayfield in the conversation higher than Jonathan Taylor. Drake May's playing a good year of football, but not more valuable than Jonathan Taylor, honestly. I just think this is one of the best seasons you will see in a long time. This guy's broke records already, making history, and on a historic run. You got to have him top 3 in the conversation. Like I said, it's not fair to, guys that's not in the position of being like quarterback that just gets snubbed year in and year out of the award. Like I said, Saquon probably should have won it last year, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Take it with a grain of salt. But like I said, the odds is the odds. It's going to be like this regardless of the situation until they make that change. But like I said, Saquon has to be top 3 in the conversation if it was up to me.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely agreed there. Jonathan Taylor should be higher odds in that list. And like you said, I would take Jonathan Taylor over Daniel Jones. As much as Daniel Jones he's performed amazing, I think Jonathan Taylor is a huge part of why the Colts have been so successful in offense. And speaking of successful parts on the offense, we are now going to move on to the wide receiver group here. Now, this is interesting because previous seasons, with the wide receiver group, we knew we had talent. As fans, we knew that the Colts just had the talent at wide receiver. We just needed the quarterback, and now you're seeing it. You're just seeing how much diversity you have in your wide receiver group, right? You have Michael Pittman, right, with 446 receiving yards as of right now, 25th, tied for third in touchdowns. I mean, Michael Pittman has done excellent. He's that long arm guy, that number 1 receiver you can rely on. Josh Downs has been really good at getting first downs this year and has just been a very good slot option. And Alec Pierce being the downfield threat, not only the downfield threat, but has been great on crossers as well. So he's becoming more flexible in what he can do. But talk to me through, Marcus, what were your expectations for the wide receiver group before the year, and kind of how has that changed during the year so far?
So my expectations was them. I was a little bit worried coming into this year, just due to recent history with this core, not really changing it up or anything. Even the AD Mitchell pick was like, okay, he's good, but it's like it mostly relied on QB production. Like the guy giving him the ball. And of course, last year there was like these things about separation issues and things of that nature. And it just goes to show that these guys always had that potential. It just was a matter of the person giving them the ball. And hitting them in stride and things of that nature. Of course, Daniel Jones has a few plays where he throws it behind them or overthrows them, sells like that. But most of all, he's hitting them right in the breadbasket. Like these guys are making the catch radius for these guys is crazy. Alec Pierce, we knew how good he was on those go routes. He's always reliable. Michael Pittman Jr. is looking like the contract he's worth with the amazing hands and just being available at any given moment. Josh Downs, Mr. First Downs, complete. Every time on third down situations, you know where to find Josh Downs. He's going to get the ball. Never drops it. Even though he does have some drops, but always reliable regardless of that situation. AD Mitchell is still a wild card. We know how good he is. Besides the whole situation with him, dropping the ball before the end zone. Like he has the potential to do that, but it's just disciplinary actions. It is what it is at the end of the day. still a wild card. Like I said, the sky's the limit for that guy. He just has to clean it up. I don't know what they're going to do with him with that situation. But other than that, like I said, these guys, this wide receiver room is really good. Even Ashton Doolin, special teams unit. This guy, we knew who he was at wide receiver from the jump. You put him in, he's a plug and play automatic. He's pretty good at that position as well. Like I said, this team, this wide receiver room, always had potential. It was just due to who was giving him the football, and it shows you this week. And this is why they have one of the best offenses out there. Shane Steichen draws up a good scheme. Those guys go out there and execute. They've been doing this so far this season, so I got to tip my hat off to that wide receiver room. Definitely took me by surprise. Of course, I wanted another vet out there. It's still a chance to go out there and do so. We don't really need like a star receiver, but they have enough guys to go out there and go get the football. So it's a deep room. But like I said, most of that was just due to quarterback play, and it goes to show you how it is with Daniel Jones this year, how they play.
No, definitely. And yeah, wide receivers, I mean, in terms of that, they've been performing really good. And like you said, I mean, this group has just surpassed expectations for what we expected this year. And specifically Ashton Doolin, I mean, he could just do everything you ask him to. I mean, Ashton Doolin, he's just, just all tricks, right? He just has everything up his sleeve that he can do. You even saw that, specifically in the Raiders game where he was able to show out. And, you have Alec Pierce who was out for a couple games, but when he returned, you saw Alec Pierce's impact. I mean, if you could even say if the Colts had Alec Pierce in the Rams game, that could have been a win, right? Because Alec Pierce makes an impact. He is that downfield threat. He makes the secondary accountable, holds them accountable, right? Matter of fact, and Josh Downs is just kind of that underneath guy. Kind of reminds me, you can make the comparison of like Tank Dell, right? And then Michael Pittman, just similar to like Mike Evans. He's just a guy that you can just rely on time and time again to make those catches. And wide receivers, I mean, I think you would agree with this. I would give them an A. I think they've been excellent for quarter two of the year, weeks 5 through 8. Raiders, Cardinals game, Chargers, and for the Titans as well. I mean, I think for these 4 games, this wide receiver group has been nothing but excellent and has done everything to the playbook.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Definitely would give them a A or a B. Some people would be biased about that. But I would definitely give them an A grade. Like I said, this offense has been playing out of its mind this year. So definitely give them an A grade for that group.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And for the next group coming up, I mean, shoot, Tyler Warren, the tight ends right now coming in for this offense. We're just getting to the bread and butter right here, but the tight ends with Tyler Warren, the rookie coming out, he's leading all tight ends in receiving yards right now. I never even expected that. I knew Tyler Warren could be, a really great prospect coming out, but I did not know he was just going to come out the jump, just working, getting right to it, learning the playbook, learning the offense, and just mastering it. Might I say? I mean, he already looks like a veteran, like other players have been saying in press conferences. But I want to get some of your thoughts, Marcus. What have you thought of the tight end, the tight end group? Not just Tyler Warren, but also like Mo Ali Cox, Andrew Ogletree. What are your thoughts of the tight end group here this season?
Well, I like the tight end run by a lot. The tight ends that we had before we got Tyler Warren was really good at blocking, and all of those guys could do at least one thing. But we never really had a complete tight end like Tyler Warren until he got here. That's why we were so eager to get him at the draft once he was available, because we knew how good he would be for this Shane Steichen system, and it showed you this week. He just unlocked this offense to a whole nother level. He's so good at just making the defense think, for just a second, and it showed you in so many games. He got even the Dolphins game. I would say, there was so many games where you forget about him and he just gets maybe 10 yards a pop. The Chargers game was another game that stood out for me. When he just becomes so reliable on those delayed routes, and he can do more than one thing. He's a complete tight end, and this is what this team's been missing for so many years. This guy so young, but he's so old school, and it looked like he's just been playing the game for so long. And it's only his first year; he doesn't show it, and he just takes a toll week in and week out. Like he got banged up a lot in the last 2 weeks, but you thought he would go on the IR or on the health on the medical report, but nope. He's just tough as nails, man. He's just a dog. He's handsome and he can play football. There's two things you would love to see on the Colts team, and he's just so complete of a tight end, blocking out of this world. He's like taking linemen off the grid when he's going to go block man. Receiving, he go catch the ball. Play lines up at fullback, lined up at wide receiver. Try to throw the football with his left hand on one play, on a wildcat formation. You can just put him anywhere on the field. He's going to make a contribution regardless of the situation. And this is what Shane Steichen, this is what Daniel Jones, this is what Jonathan Taylor, this is what the wide receivers needed at this position. So Tyler Warren definitely gets the A grade. Mo Ali Cox, like I said, he's very reliable at blocking. Definitely needed that from him. You know, caught a few balls, but like I said, most of the receiving group, we got to give that to Tyler Warren when it comes to the tight end. Drew Ogletree can't really do anything.
No, yeah.
Yeah, can't really say anything for Drew Ogletree besides the whole Mooney Ward situation. But other than that, I would love to see Will Mallory, but like I said, it's just not enough space for him. But he's still one of my favorite tight ends, but he just can't see the field just due to how good this team is.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, he's still on the roster. He's mostly inactive, but I mean, shoot, Will Mallory, whenever he was on the field, he showed his potential. But Tyler Warren has just been spectacular. I mean, when you look at what he's been able to do on the field, and I mean, off the field, he's not much of like, Michael Pittman mentioned this in a podcast you and on in the same Brown podcast. He mentioned how Tyler Warren is just more quiet, but it's mostly, those quiet people, they let the field do the talking, right? They don't talk and try to trash talk, these DBs or linebackers, right? Tyler Warren is more of that guy that lets the field do the talking, lets his work do the talking. You just got to respect that kind of work ethic and that kind of attitude as a tight end and as a player. And like you said, Mo Ali Cox, Andrew Ogletree are amazing blockers. They've done amazing in the run blocking, in the run protection, and for the pass protection as well. They done just amazing all season, I would say. And for the tight end group, I think the grade I would have to give here is definitely an A. I mean, for this whole offense, it's just more obvious to give all the groups A, just because this offense has just been excellent. And I mean, I'm interested to see what grade you would give them, Marcus, but I assume it would be similar.
Yes, absolutely. A plus if anything, because that's what the game's been missing. We needed Tyler Warren, and he just completes the offense. So definitely an A.
Definitely. And to get to the last offensive group before we head to the defense, it will be the offensive line unit. Now, Marcus, the offensive line has just been excellent, like the rest of the groups. But I would say that it has been just, we expected it to be really good for the offensive line, as they've always have been. But this is just like mind blowing, right? I mean, what they're doing is like disrespectful towards defenses. I mean, Quentin Nelson is out there just murdering people, literally and figuratively. And the center position, and I mean, just all positions on that offensive line. If I'm a defense facing them, I am scared. If I'm a defensive lineman, a linebacker, I'm scared of Big Q coming my way. And I just see the offensive line is just a unit right now. They're a fortress, really just a force to be reckoned with, right? And I do want to get some of your thoughts here, on the offensive line. What have you thought? Uh, you know, I know your perspective was probably good before the season, but have they surpassed some of your expectations for the season?
I would give the offensive line a B grade. I think run blocking, of course, has been the best thing about the protections. Um, Gonsalves has been playing pretty decent football. I would say Bortolini has been, the guy that we already knew coming out the draft. Getting him to replace Ryan Kelly eventually. Didn't think he was going to jump in and just be as successful as he was. Even though I knew, like after a few games when he got those start potentials when Ryan Kelly was injured, I was like, okay, this guy can be the center to start now. Always wanted him at the starting center position coming out the draft when Ryan Kelly wasn't able to play. I was like, yeah, we can keep him at the starting center, and he showed you that, man. Him and big Quentin Nelson are just deuce and domino. Those guys are just dynamic at that position, right next to each other. And you can see all those lanes that open up for a run that goes up the middle, and then of course Quentin Nelson being Quentin Nelson, just being the lead blocker. I would say Braden Smith has definitely been playing some good football, but Bernard Ryman, I think, has been having a very suspect year. Just got paid, but with the penalties and everything, protection wise, I said like I think he's on the downside of the year, in my opinion. So that'll probably be the weakest spot. would be the left tackle and the right guard. But other than that, like I said, this team still offensive line's been playing really good football blocking wise. But I would say, besides Bernard Ryman getting the penalty every other snap, this is probably be his probably the I would say he'll be the weakest spot of the offensive line in my opinion. That's why I gave it the B grade. But like I said, they still are one of the best offensive lines in football as a whole. But the weakest part would probably be the left tackle position.
No, yeah, most definitely. And I think, I could agree with that. The left tackle position with Bernard Ryman has definitely been, especially with the penalties. I mean, you could just tell it's just like mistakes. But I mean, as obviously he gets more experience, I think, those mistakes should diminish, following the next seasons. But with this offensive line, with the grade I'm going to go with, I'm not gonna go with a B. I do agree with that grade. I think I'm gonna probably go with more of like, an A minus. I don't think I want to give them an A exactly because of Bernard Ryman at that left tackle position. I think he could perform better, and especially going into November, December football, you want to see Bernard Ryman fixing those mistakes because especially you do not want to have those costly penalties going up against teams like the Chiefs, going up against these playoff contender teams as well. But yeah, this offensive line, though, as a unit, has been doing pretty well. 9 sacks allowed, second best behind the Denver Broncos, and then PFF rating them like the best offensive line in the league right now. But yes, even then, with that, there's still, mistakes to be fixed on this offensive line, especially with the left tackle position. And, going from the offense into the defense, we talked about how good this offense has been. It's been excellent, really great. This defense, I will say, there have been rough moments. All right. I think Xavier Howard, ever since he left, I will say this, Marcus, the secondary, has had its issues, but there have been things improved. I do want to start. Obviously, we started with the offensive line, or we ended with the offensive line on the offense. I want to start over here with the defensive line, kind of just flip it here. What are your thoughts on this defensive front, this front four so far this season?
I'm gonna give it a C grade. Honestly, the C grade for the defensive line. Um, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart been doing most of the damage, but the edge rush is the biggest issue. Regardless of the situation, I know a lot of people like to talk pressure rates and getting pressure, but they've never been getting home. There's so many games over the past 8 weeks where we play quarterbacks that are mobile and able to, make something happen out of nothing just due to the pass rush not finishing their meals. So I would think, the edge rush has been a huge letdown. Of course, we knew about this going into the offseason. I mean, coming into the season from the offseason, but hopefully they make a move before trade deadline, and try to get somebody to pair up with Latu. But like I said, it's been they have so many pieces rotational wise. Of course, they had some splashes with the Rook JT from last week, with that spin move. But other than that, I think the Ezra, like I said, they've been getting pressure, but just haven't been getting home, and that's really been an issue. Even on the run defensive side, from the edge and the outside runs, it's been a huge thing. But like I said, the middle of the defensive line has definitely been really good. I think the defensive tackle as a group has been playing good football, but the edge rush, like I said, as a whole, has definitely been a down on the downside of play. But the defensive tackles, Neville Gallimore, Adatumbe Adewale, DeForest Buckner, and Grover Stewart, those guys, I think definitely been playing out of their minds. But the edge rush, like I said, nah, hasn't been it.
Yeah, and if I can just grade the DTs, I would go ahead and give them, more towards a B or an A. But unfortunately, as the D line, as a unit, as a front four, I'm gonna have to agree with you, Marcus. It's gonna be a C. I really expected more of, Laiatu Latu to do, get home a lot more. And I just feel like this defensive line has been so close to, getting home. And I mean, you look at it on paper, if you look at it just on paper, you'd be like, oh, wow, they must be doing good. But when you're seeing the live on game action, you're really seeing that they're not getting home. They are not getting as much pressure as on paper because on paper it says top five in pressure rate, they're top five in sacks, they're top three in hurries. But yet, when you look in the game, Cam Ward, there were some times where he had a lot of time in that pocket to go ahead and go through his reads. It didn't seem like he was getting pressured. Even Justin Herbert had a lot of time to be able to run out the pocket and find his reads. So this defensive line, I'm hoping it could, continue to hopefully improve by quarter three and quarter four, so we can see them through November, December start to improving in terms of getting more sacks. But I mean, we will start to see this defensive line just start to improve. We know the defensive tackles are amazing and elite, but we need one of those edges to show up. Just one. I mean, it could be Quiddy Pay, Ladu Ladu. We just need one person to start really showing up for this front because this defensive tackles, they can only do so much. They can only do so much up front. And, speaking of going into the more of the interior side of things, the linebacker group. I mean, the linebacker group, I I don't know where really to start here, but I mean, Marcus, I'm gonna leave it to you hand first. What grade would you give the linebacker group from the first half of the season?
So I'm going to give them an average rate as well. I'm going to give them a C. I think that's the weakest spot besides the edge rush. I feel like any veteran quarterback that can spot the weakness in the middle of the field, which where the linebackers are held, or even have them in coverage. I think you'll just have a field day. But Lou Anarumo draws up a good scheme. How did that more like so you see more safeties on the field. You see some defensive linemen like Latu and DeForest Buckner, like as the last week, drop back in coverage just to hide, the linebackers not being as good. Of course, Zaire Franklin had some splashes in zone coverage over the few weeks, but I think in totality, when you look at the linebackers as a whole, it's been on the downside of play. Like I said, the linebackers they are good at run defense, of course, give them that. But as a whole in pass coverage and things like that, of course, you will want them to be better. Zaire Franklin's playing good football. The weak side linebacker has been the biggest issue. Like with Joe Bacci before he got cut, hasn't been playing good football. They go get Jermaine Pratt, another guy for Luana Ramo, has been playing good football. Pratt's been getting better over the weeks. Um, but this is from a guy that already knew the system. You would expect more, but like I said, weak side linebacker hasn't been it. Zaire Franklin's out there on the island by himself most of the time, and Lou Adamo draws a good screen of hiding those linebackers. So, like I said, as a player whole, I would give him a C grade.
Most definitely agreed. I would definitely give them a C. And it's a C grade, specifically because, like you were saying, this linebacker group just hasn't been amazing. Zaire Franklin is obviously, he's the leader of that group. He rallies the troops for that defense, but, he's had splash plays. And, I think a lot of it is Lou Anarumo. He schemes it up so well to kind of, like you were saying, just hide the mistakes of the linebacker, the poor coverage that the linebackers have had this year. So Lou Anarumo has kind of had to, hide it basically and try to, push defensive linemen out into coverage, like Ladu Ladu getting 2 interceptions. I mean, that's just crazy. But the linebackers have just done, they've done enough Colts to win games, I would say. And Jermaine Pratt, that addition, I feel like has helped out with the run defense. I would say the coverage has been kind of almost the same as it's been previously, but the run defense has significantly improved. But I do think that the run defense is going to get tested more in quarter 3 with like the Steelers, the Falcons with Bijan Robinson. I am interested to see how they do, more down the road against more efficient run offenses and see if they can actually stop the run. Because I know that's one of the more question marks that is there right now. But the linebackers have to agree with the C. And we are going to go to, another position that has also struggled with injuries, right? A lot of injuries, might I say, even before the year started, the cornerback room. I mean, Marcus, when Travius Ward is there, you can see that the cornerbacks perform better, obviously, because Travius Ward can cover like half of the field. He's a lockdown corner. Whoever he's on, they're not going to be targeted, right? Like Travius Ward is an amazing all pro corner, but when he's out, it just seems like these quarterbacks can sort of pick you apart. Like Justin Herbert, you saw it in that game in that second half. He was able to pick those outside corners apart, specifically going to Keenan Allen mostly all of the time because he was getting open, right, with space. And I think, the cornerback room just dealing with a lot of injuries, but I'm interested to see here, Marcus, what is going to be your grade for this cornerback room through the first half of the season?
I'm gonna give them a C plus or kind of like a B minus. I think I was edging on giving them a B minus just due to when they're healthy, like a Mooney Ward when he's out there, they're just playing phenomenal. But I say as of late, they've been playing bend but don't break defense. Honestly, and what they have out there with the Ricky Jonathan Edwards and things of that nature, just playing the guys that's next man up. They've been playing some good football. I think they won a lot of reps and keep, especially a guy like Makai Blackman. who they just acquired from via trade. I think, Mekhi Blackman stepped in and played some really solid reps. Both all of these guys, even Kenny Moore playing injured, playing good football. A lot of these guys, like I said, even with all the injuries, going out there and giving it their all, playing some good gutsy coverage, regardless of the situation. They lose some reps, they win some reps. Majority of the reps they're playing pretty disciplined. So I would say that's not the weakest side of football. I think, like I said, with all the injuries and things like that, they still been playing some solid coverage. So I definitely would give them a B minus, or like a C plus if you want to give them above average play. So I think I enjoyed seeing what they can do, especially when we get Jalen Jones back and things like that. On Mooney Ward, this DB room is going to be way more scary than what we're already seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you would have asked me about quarter one, of the season with Xavier Howard, I probably would have given them a D because, or just maybe a C minus. I didn't really like the play from Xavier Howard. I think it just made it like really bad, but ever since week five, where Xavier Howard hasn't been out there, you got to see these young guys get a chance. Jonathan Edwards, McKee Blackman, Chris Lamons getting that pick in that Titans game, right? I mean, you're seeing these young guys step up and really, I mean, it's just been the energy, right? The energy of this defense has kind of motivated these corners to be physical, maybe too physical at times, but they've been, holding their own for the most part, trying to hold their own. The Chargers was a bit rough, but for my grade, I'm going to go more of like, C, same as the linebacker and the D line. I just think there's more to be improved within the cornerback room. And with the return of Jalen Jones and then Travius Ward returning in week 12, hopefully we can see the cornerback room start to improve. And now the last position group of the defense is going to be the safety room. The DBs right in the backfield. And now, obviously, the Cam Bynum addition was noticed right away in week one. I mean, his energy that he brings to this defense is something we've been needing. I mean, we've always had energy, but I think Cam Bynum just brings something to that secondary that it's not just Kenny Moore, right? It's also Cam Bynum in that backfield, kind of making sure that the energy is hype. Nick Cross has had quite the jump. I mean, this year he has looked spectacular. I want to get some of your thoughts, Marcus. Has the safety room kind of surpassed your expectations? What have you been seeing from the safety room thus far?
So they definitely passed my expectations. I'm going to give them a B grade, a solid B. I love the Nick Cross and Cam Bynum. And Nick Cross is a guy that they, had in line, lining them up at the linebacker position, just have the pass coverage of the weak side linebackers and things like that. So he's been playing a lot of press up, maybe sometimes blitzing, but playing more in the middle of the field, and just doing what he usually does. So definitely a hybrid athlete can play anywhere. Nick Cross is definitely a guy that I'm so proud of, just from just his whole journey. From not being able to get on the field to where he is now, being a starter, just a complete dog. So definitely give him, a shout out to that. And Cam Bynum had a few quiet weeks. We've always been wanting to turn over just due to those celebrations, but he's been still having a lot of good games, a lot of good reps, playing really sticky coverage, and especially in the tackling. One of the best tacklers out there on the defense in general. And been really good at the run game. So like I said, he's been definitely a huge addition to that safety room. With the loss of Junior Blackman and things of that nature. Rodney Thomas is out there more in the field. Like I said, just due to the linebackers not being really good in coverage. So you're seeing more three safety type defenses. Like I said, the safety group as a whole has been playing really good. So, and they've been playing bend but no break. They play a lot of good defense and keeping the opposing offenses from scoring. So, like I said, they've been playing very solid ball. That's probably one of the brightest spots of that defense, besides the interior defensive line.
No, most definitely. And, the safeties, they've been spectacular. I mean, like you were saying, bend, don't break. This is a really nice defense. And, if you were to tell me, with Gus Bradley, this group wouldn't have been as good just because, Gus Bradley plays the same zone that he always does. He doesn't scheme things up to try to hide the mistakes. The linebackers just would have been there in pass coverage, and that would have been very scary. But, thank gosh we have Lou Anarumo now. And, I feel like with Lou Anarumo, it's able to scheme things up where you don't see those mistakes happen as much. With the safety room specifically, it's just been excellent to see them. The only big mistake or big play I've seen them really give up was that one in the Chargers game to excuse me if I'm saying this correctly, Arande Godson the second, the tight end, that big 40, 50-yard gain at the beginning of the second half where Nick Cross just, instead of trying to make the tackle, just try to go for the fumble or the punch out, just couldn't get it. And he just ended up running like wild into that red zone. That was the only like big play I've seen them like make in these past 4 weeks. But overall, I would give them, a B as well. I think they've been excellent, time and time again. And now moving on to the special teams, Marcus, what have you thought of the special teams thus far? Obviously, the unfortunate injury to um, the unfortunate injury happening to Spencer Schrader. He's on IR, but Michael Badgley, right, the Honey Badger, has come in to, take his place. What have you thought of the special teams thus far throughout the season?
I give them an A grade. They keep the momentum going for the team. Scoring every drive. So like I said, Spencer Schrader, best kicker in the game before he got, you know, taken out the game. I feel like the guy should have got ejected, but it is what it is at the end of the day. McCollum is the name, I think. But Bagley came in, scared me, missed the first kick. I was like, okay, this is going to be terrible. But he wound up getting himself back together and becoming the Bagley that we remember. This is his second stint back in Indiana. So, like I said, he's been playing pretty good. Rigoberto Sanchez, the punt king, he's been playing solid ball as well ever since he came back. And he shows you how much we missed him. Every ball that he punts is just a thing of beauty. So, special teams is probably one of the best parts of the team in general, so I give them an A grade, highest grade besides the offense in total.
No, most definitely have to agree there with the A grade. I think they've been excellent. Michael Badgley has done a good job of filling in, and of course, we all had that scare at the beginning, like, "Oh no, it's gonna go wrong." But no, he's been able to make all the field goals, the extra points, and he's just done a fantastic job. Also, when it comes to the kickoff coverage, I feel like the Colts have done an excellent job just in the more quarter two part of the season of just improving that, making sure that they're getting the tackles on the kickoff and make sure that the opposing teams aren't getting as many yards as they were in like the first quarter of the season. But yeah, just some improvements. I like what I see from the special teams, just continuing that momentum. And Rigoberto Sanchez obviously just pinning them within their own 10. He's done a fantastic job of just punting as well, even though for like the first 3 games of the season, he didn't really punt much. But, he punted later in the season, did a good job of that. Special teams, A grade, excellent. And then the final grade to give out is to coaches. Now, for the coaches, for me, Marcus, it's no doubt going to be an A. I mean, this coaching staff has been excellent, arguably one of the best coaching staffs right now in the league with what they've been able to do with this roster. This roster has so much talent, but of course, like you said, we're depleted at linebacker, we're depleted at corner. Yet the defense still has good numbers on paper, right? So, and especially with the turnovers that they get. So, I want to get your thoughts, Marcus. What was kind of some of your expectations going into the season with this coaching staff, and what are your thoughts now?
So yeah, my expectations was them to just be better. Like I said, Shane Steichen leading this offense, just getting in his bag every week, just digging deeper and deeper into his playbook. And it showed even in the Titans game, just trying to do stuff that we never seen before. So this offense, like I said, has been playing at a high pace and playing at his tempo, going forward, being aggressive, taking the points when it's there. Like I said, he's just been drawing up a good game plan for the offense. So, and it shows they're one of the best offenses in the NFL. When it comes to Lou Rumo, like I said, this defense has been a huge upgrade from what we're seeing. They've been aggressive in the offseason and they filled the pieces that we needed. So, like I said, both of these coaches have definitely exceeded my expectations. This is some of the best Colts football we ever seen in a while. So I mean, like I said, they definitely been playing some good ball. So I love the coaching staff.
No, definitely agreed. And Lou Anarumo, I mean, the Bengals, they definitely regret letting him go because Lou Anarumo, he has done wonders here in Indianapolis. But yeah, I mean, to end off that quarterly report, this has been the quarter two, the first half of the season. I mean, it's just flown by, right? Weeks 1 through 8, the Colts are 7-1, Marcus. Now looking more into quarter three, kind of previewing that. We're now gonna get into like the tougher half of the season for the Colts, and I'm kind of glad that the Colts have this on the second half because now the first half is out of the way. You're 7-1, more of the easier part of the schedule. So kind of glad to see that the Colts have a good record heading into the more of the harder part. This third quarter of the season is gonna be the Steelers, the Falcons, then you have the bye week right after that Falcons game. Then you have the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Houston Texans are coming to Indianapolis. So, what are your thoughts? Kind of, to conclude here, what are your thoughts on the third quarter of the season for the Colts team?
Stay consistent, stay true to your craft, and keep playing good football. Stay clean, limit the turnovers, and I think you should be good. I mean, a lot of these teams are huge threats, but you know when you have the best record in the football, you're going to have a target on your back every week. So you just got to play it like it's the Super Bowl. You got to have that playoff energy every week going into it. So, like I said, if you can stay consistent, keep it clean, and master the opposing team, you should be good.
No, most definitely. And well, thank you so much, Marcus, again from the Culture Shock for hopping on to the pod here, to talk Colts football, talk this quarterly report. It was a privilege to have you on, man. Thank you so much. Now, just tell the fans, where they could find you, your socials, your YouTube channel, where could they check you out if they want to check out, your page and your content.
You can find me anywhere. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, X, slash Twitter. You can find me on Twitch. All of these things you can find me as Culture Shock. Um, underscore on X. Every other platform is just Culture Shock Podcast. You can check out the website, thebluestable.com. We put articles and the podcast on there as well. And on Twitch, the Blue Stable Podcast. And we're live on game day as well, so you can check me out on X. But that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you so much. And that'll be it, ladies and gentlemen. I was your host, DJ Be Cool. This is the guest with Culture Shock. It was an honor to have him on. This was the quarterly report for the second quarter of the season. And you guys have